Ge Weilong's The First Incense. Agarwood crime cannot escape its own fate. I love you. What does it have to do with you? No matter how weird it is, it can't be blamed on you. Agarwood is known as the first of all fragrances and is very valuable. It is grown from the agarwood tree, but it is not an ordinary agarwood wood. The formation of agarwood requires external influence. When the agarwood tree is damaged externally, it will secrete oil to heal the wound. If the wound happens to be infected by a yellow-green fungus at this time, the fungus will try its best to grow in order to survive. At this time, the oil and fungus will fuse together and a series of chemical reactions will occur. As time goes by, finally forming agarwood. Agarwood is very precious because of its accidental formation and long time. It is rare and valuable. Agarwood can be used as medicine, and more commonly as incense. Now regarded as a literary toy, agarwood has been influencing the world with its supreme texture and quiet and elegant fragrance. Of course, it is impossible to bake or burn such a precious thing. Only the powder and very small pieces of agarwood can be processed into incense blocks. Refined people can heat and burn them in an incense burner to enjoy the unique fragrance they emit. Fragrance. One morning in the early spring of 1943, a 23-year-old girl, armed with a letter of recommendation and novellas of her own, came to Shanghai Yuyuan Road and carefully knocked on the door of Ziluolan Nunnery, which was called Yuanyang Nunnery, the apartment of Zhou Shoujuan, the leader of Butterfly School and senior editor. This girl is Ge Weilong. These two novels, named after the first and second incense and agarwood chips, immediately attracted Zhou Shoujuan and he was deeply delighted. It can be said that Zhou Shoujuan was a discerning person. The First Incense was very popular. Once the novel was published, it caused a huge sensation in Shanghai and made Ge Weilong stand out in the literary world. Agarwood chips. The First Incense tells the story of Ge Weilong, a female student from Shanghai. In order to continue to stay in Hong Kong to complete her studies, she turned to her aunt, Mrs. Liang, for help. Mrs. Liang is a typical materialist. She wants her niece Weilong to be her bait and win over men, so she agrees to take Weilong in. When she first entered her aunt's private school, Weilong put herself in a fantasy realm, just like Grandma Liu entering the Grand View Garden. Everything here was so novel to her, giving her a strong perspective temptation. The house was white, the windows are green, the fence is yellow, and the bricks underground are red. She felt that her aunt was a capable person who held the wheel of the times with one hand. In her own small world, she retained the lustful atmosphere of the late Qing dynasty. She closed the door and turned herself into a miniature Empress Dowager Cixi. Weilong's heart is full of yearning. She wants to turn her plate of steamed pork into a plate of sweet and sour pork ribs with playful characters. After Weilong moved into Mrs. Liang's house, facing the various clothes her aunt had prepared for her, she felt at first that it was no different from buying someone else's, which was a bit inappropriate. A country girl couldn't resist such temptation. Woolen fabrics are as fluffy as a provocative jazz dance. Thick and heavy velvet is like a melancholy classical opera-themed song. Soft satin is like the blue Danube, flowing around people in a cool and shady way. All over her body, the breathless rumba music reminded her of the long purple electric silk skirt in the closet and the rustling sound it made when dancing the rumba. Thinking of this, she whispered to everything downstairs, "It's okay to take a look." She pulled up the blanket, covered her head, whispered again, "It's okay to take a look," and fell asleep with a smile. Every time Grandma Liu entered the Grand View Garden, she never forgot that she was an old country woman. She always returned to her home and managed her home with care. In the end, she became Qiao Jie's benefactor. However, Weilong hung out in the closet for 2 or 3 months. The day-long sensual life made Weilong gradually addicted and lost himself. If she wants to leave here, she can only find a rich man and marry him. It is almost impossible to have a wealthy husband who is also desirable. Weilong is unwilling to become a complete materialist like Mrs. Liang, and she still has illusions about love. But after several struggles with Qiao Qi, she gave up on love. For the little desire in his heart, Weilong married the playboy Qiao Qi under the design of Mrs. Liang. and willingly became a tool for Qiao Qi and Mrs. Liang to obtain money and men. She couldn't think about her future. When she thought about it, she only felt the most terror. She had no long-lasting plans. Only the trivial things in front of her could give her timid and restless heart a temporary rest. Ge Weilong used a ruthless style to compose the tragic song of Ge Weilong's life calmly and sharply, truly and cruelly. Agarwood Chips tells the story of Hong Kong's dissipated life during the war, and Hong Kong got its name precisely from agarwood. A kind of agarwood tree, also known as agarwood, has been planted in Guangdong since ancient times. Agarwood is harvested and made into incense cubes, which are then shipped to inland and Southeast Asia through various terminals in Hong Kong. At that time, there was an endless stream of ships in the port, and the fragrance was lingering, and the name Hong Kong originated from this. Ge Weilong's debut novel is titled Agarwood Crumbs, which has its own profound meaning. At the beginning of the article, Ge Weilong directly pointed out the agarwood crumbs. Please find the moldy green copper incense burner passed down from your family. Light a burner of agarwood shavings, and listen to me tell a story about pre-war Hong Kong. When you finish lighting the burner of agarwood shavings, my story will be finished. This story tells the story of Ge Weilong, a very ordinary Shanghai girl. Therefore, the agarwood chips we ordered are the agarwood chips of Ge Weilong. A simple female student, from the moment she stepped into her Aunt Mrs. Liang's private school. She was like agarwood chips put into an incense burner. Her only fate was to let others burn her, with no other way out. Ge Weilong has been pushing Weilong to the breaking point of human nature rationally and soberly, and then into the abyss. Weilong's fall was not forced by her aunt. Weilong walked in step by step unconsciously, consciously, and willingly. It was her own choice. This is Weilong's personal tragedy, the tragedy of the entire society, and the tragedy of the times. Under the general environment, no one can fully control their own destiny. Ge Weilong used her own pen to write about the pitiful behind the ridiculousness of all living beings in an era. Isn't Ge Weilong that piece of agarwood crumbs? Ge Weilong has a distinguished family background. Her grandfather Zhang Pilan was a famous official in the late Qing dynasty, and her grandmother Li Juku was the eldest daughter of Li Hongzhang, an important official in the Qing government. She is as rare and precious as agarwood, but her childhood was unhappy. Her family was in dire straits. Her parents were divorced, and her father once threatened to kill her. She escaped from her father's house to go to her mother. Her mother did not welcome her rival very much. Ge Weilong only enjoyed a short period of warmth, and her mother went to England. Her mother was willing to pay for her tuition, but was unwilling to take her with her. Ge Weilong was originally admitted to the University of London, but because of the Pacific War, she had to study at the University of Hong Kong. When she was about to graduate, Hong Kong fell again, so she had to return to Shanghai. The reason why the aroma of agarwood is the first among all fragrances is not because of its richness, but because of the diversity, layering, explosiveness, and longevity of the flavor. Life carries her forward all the way. Even a piece of agarwood chips is precious compared to ordinary spices. She tried her best to be herself, exuding her own unique fragrance. Ge Weilong's tortuous experience has brought together various contradictions in her character. She is a hedonist who is good at turning art into life and turning life into art. And she is also a person full of tragedy in life. She is compassionate and pitiful. I always see the pitiful behind the ridiculousness of all living beings, but in real life they appear cold and unfeeling. Ge Weilong's works lack some positive meanings. Even Foulet once criticized her, but this does not mean that her works are not excellent. She makes the words have real life and penetrate directly into your heart. She is an agarwood chips is so real, so honest, and directly expresses one's outlook on life, love, and marriage. As Ge Weilong's debut novel, it contains her own view of love. If you want to get something beautiful, you must pay the price. Sometimes you have to give away your most precious possessions. However, even if you finally get it, you will find that it is all meaningless. When love comes, of course it is also happy. However, this kind of happiness has to be paid for, And you have to learn to accept disappointment, pain, and separation. Since then, my life is not pure anymore. What makes Ge Weilong determined to stay in Hong Kong is, apart from material enjoyment, the most important thing: greed. Ge Weilong fell in love with a romantic young master and worked hard to make money for him to spend. He said many tender words to her, but he never said a word that he loved her. She was just a short-lived flower on Qiaoqi's lips, and it withered immediately. "So, what?" Ge Weilong said to Qiaoqi. "I love you. What does it have to do with you? All the weird things can't be blamed on you." This love is very similar to the love that happened to Ge Weilong herself a year later, a love that is so low as to bloom in the dust. Faced with the affair of the scumbag Hu Lancheng, she endured it again and again, writing manuscripts desperately to earn money for him to spend. When they finally broke up, she even sent her royalties to Hu Lancheng. People don't understand why Ge Weilong fell in love with Hu Lancheng, who had a family and was so much older than her. In fact, there are clues in the text. Among thousands of people, meet the person you want to meet. For millions of years, in the endless wilderness of time, there is neither a step too early nor a step too late. When we encounter someone, we can only say softly, "Oh, are you here too?" Ge Weilong wanted to find a way out for himself and chose the playboy Qiaoqi. Ge Weilong met Hu Lancheng during the season of love. Qiaoqi does not guarantee love to Weilong, but she can make her happy. Weilong is greedy for Qiaoqi's happiness. Hu Lancheng does not guarantee that he loves Ge Weilong, but Hu Lancheng understands Ge Weilong's works. They have a common language. They talk about art, literature, and philosophy of life, and they seem to be a perfect match. Ge Weilong loves Hu Lancheng's understanding. Because we have loved, we are compassionate. Because we understand, we are tolerant. The end of the story does not reveal Ge Weilong's ending. The story ends abruptly when Ge Weilong and Qiaoqi went to Wanchai to watch the excitement on New Year's Eve. This Hong Kong story ends here. Weilong's incense burner is almost finished. Burned Agarwood chips are nothing. However, Eileen Chang acted out the story herself. After leaving Hu Lancheng, Ge Weilong gradually withered and passed the peak period of her creation, and few works were published in the future. The last person died alone in a foreign country and never saw Hu Lancheng again. Ge Weilong uses her own personal experience and unique insights into life to write her words. It is precisely because of this that her works can still sell well even after her death. Agarwood chips may be a warning to those girls who would rather cry in a BMW than laugh on a bicycle. If you want to get what you want, you must pay a price. There is no shortcut. It is impossible for a woman to redeem herself through love and marriage. The promise of peace and stability in the years to come is just a promise. If you love, please love deeply. If you love deeply, please choose the right person.
Alright, this story has come to an end. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you.